Hello, welcome to the overview for the dynamic platform icons. Once you've downloaded the pack and installed it into your project, you should get this new folder for the dynamic platform icons. And you've got a set of examples and some blueprints in here. And the main thing is, of course, the textures. So we just turn on texture view. You can see here we have a whole bunch of textures. We've got the gamepad agnostic, which is kind of works for any platform or any gamepad. PC controls, it's got the vast majority there. It doesn't cover every key on the keyboard, but the most that will be used in the game. PS4, PS4 specific controls, and Xbox One specific controls. They're white themed with dark text. They're 128 by 128 with alpha, and that's more than enough I found for most UIs. In fact, the UI example I provided, I scaled them down to 32 by 32. So I think even on a 4K, this should be plenty. To set up the dynamic switching, there's a couple of things you need to do. The dynamic inputs, your input mappings are fairly static. Most games, they set their input mappings, they don't really change that much. So we're going to make a new one, and I'll show you how it's set up. So we go to your project settings, inputs, axis, we have an aim, which we don't have currently set up. So firstly, you need to open up the game inputs, and you need to add a new element. Give this a name. I would recommend matching it to your input mappings. You don't have to, just make sure you give it a name that you'll remember in a second. So we're going to call it aim. Next, we're going to open up the controller icon mappings data table, and we're going to add a new element to this thing. So firstly, we're going to give it a row name. Now it's very important the row name and the enum match. They must match for this to work. So we're going to call it aim, and looks like there was a error there. There we go, aim. So Xbox, it's going to be a left trigger. Xbox trigger L. PS4, this is the L2. PC, this will be a right mouse. And switch is not used. We don't currently detect switch. It's just an example of how you might expand it to include extra platforms. It's up to you to do that as you wish. So we're going to save this. And that's all you need as far as the setup. Very simple. You would just do this for each of your input mappings that you want to show a unique button for. So we're going to go over to UMG now. I'm going to go to the overview UI, which is just the example pack. I'm going to zoom in over here where I'm going to add the next one. So I'm going to grab this one, just copy it, and paste it down here as we've got a new element. So I'm going to rename this to aim. And then this is the key bit. So what we have in here is the dynamic controller icon, which you can find under user created dynamic controller icons. These already have two default options, which is the input mapping, which is your enum you picked, and this is the reason we set it as an enum, so we can just pick it from a list. So we're going to pick aim, and you can see that name aim already adapted. And then the before input registering doesn't really need to be a per button, it should really be a per project, but for now this is fine. What this is doing is before you've pressed any input on the keyboard, what's the default image to show? So keyboard and mouse seems like a standard one, and most games that are on PC use that as standard. You see on a lot of games when you have that kind of press start to begin, and when you press a button or press any key to begin, that's when the UI switches over. So keyboard and mouse. So we're going to save this. Okay, and that should be it. So if we press play now, and we'll full screen this, so you can see now down the bottom right, aim is showing the right mouse button. I've got an Xbox controller plugged in and synced up, so I'm going to press any button on the keyboard, any button on the controller, and you see it immediately switched all those icons over to Xbox. I'm going to click with the mouse again. You can see it switched back to PC. I'm going to pull the trigger on the controller, switch back to Xbox, press the enter key, switch back to PC. And it's as simple as that, really. It's very easy to set up, very quick, and it's dynamic, it switches live, and really it's that simple. So just to go through a little bit about what you might need, there's one thing you have to add to your own game. You can find this in the setup readme with a bit of description, or you can just have a look at the player controller example. What we have here is we have the any key, and the any key does not consume input. This is very important, or else it'll stop all your buttons from working. Then we detect the device, the input device, And if it doesn't know what it is, give it a fallback option. It shouldn't fail unless you're deploying to a platform it doesn't know about, like Android. So if you do need Android, then you can just add it to enum and kind of set it up in here. You'll see how it works. It's very straightforward. This outputs the enum of an input device, which you can find yourself in Blueprint's input devices. You can customize this if you need to add more. And then we update widgets with input device interface. So the dynamic controller icon widget that we were including has its own uh, interface, and this fires off to any interface that's listening. So all UIs will get this update, and really it's as simple as that. So I think it's fairly straightforward to set up. It's certainly pretty quick to set up. It's a little bit manual in that you have to input your game inputs and data table, but as you saw it read, it took maybe 30 seconds per input at most. So hopefully this helps, makes it a bit clearer how to set this up. Thank you.